hey, we got Luke Beasley versus 20 Trump supporters. And he makes a lot of claims. See, here's the reason why I like reacting and commenting on these videos is because they often edit them in such a way that people like Luke Beasley are going to get a free pass on bad arguments. And because I love debating and presenting my ideas, sometimes I'm wrong. It's a great opportunity for these prominent personalities who typically won't come on the show to debate that I can at least rebut some of their claims. But I want to just stress every single time I provide commentary on these videos, which is fair use to the utmost degree, Jubilee files a copyright claim. Guys, it's abuse at this point, and if you keep doing it, well, let's just say don't keep doing it. I am allowed to counter the lies and the incorrect statements from these individuals. When you publish this to millions of people, let me see if I can, how many views does this video have? Let's 1.4 million views. And this dude is going to make many statements that are incorrect. I am not going to play an hour and 40-minute long video. I'm going to pull specific points to counter his statements. This is what Jubilee does. And I don't care if it's conservative or liberal. The people that are typically chosen to debate, they're not high-profile, prominent individuals who have built up careers challenging these ideas and calling out lies. No disrespect to those who show up to the Jubilee events to debate, but they're putting, even if it's Ben Shapiro or Luke Beasley, they're putting trained professionals up against the general public. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to like Ben Shapiro and he does these things, I largely agree a lot with what he was saying, but I have debated some of the regular people as well when it's edited in such a way. Here's what I don't like about Jubilee and why. I want to stress, they've not invited me, or if they have, I don't know, but I would not do it because they're edited. I don't do that. I don't play that game. Let me start with the quick intro so you can get a general idea of what Jubilee is presenting to you guys. It's not letting me do it. Here we go.
Multiple times to not get drafted.
I focus on, let's get the population healthy. We got a bunch of sick
Well, we're not
people.
going to do it by taking away their health care. He had a lawful asylum claim. He had gone to the border checkpoint.
When you're trying to deport 20 million people, sometimes a few things happen.
Hi, I'm Luke Beasley. I'm a liberal Gen Z political commentator, and today I'm surrounded by 20 boomer Trump supporters.
I am going to start by directly impugning the honor of this Luke Beasley. Something that I typically try to avoid doing to a certain degree. But Luke, I will say this to you. I hope you hear it. Maybe you won't. You probably won't, but whatever. Luke is a grifter. And I use that term intentionally because it's offensive to everybody. Everyone's always trying to argue that those of us in this space don't actually believe what we really believe, and it's the stupidest thing imaginable. Now, I don't believe that Luke actually believes a lot of what he says. And the reason why is we had Luke on the Culture War show. We debated. A lot of people really loved when I yelled at him about Enrique Tarrio, though I was like 30% wrong. I was like 70% right, but I got a bit wrong. I had no problem saying that. And the clip went viral because it was righteous indignation. Me yelling at a liberal, blah, blah, that's typically how it goes. However, Luke he also knows several conservatives. He does a show, or he did a show with conservative. And when I talk to these people, and even him, it's not like he's admitted and said, I lie for money. But the general sentiment was, he knows that if he corrects the record when he's wrong, and it goes against what Democrats want, he will hurt financially from it. Thus, he came on the show, said, I'll debate. He refuses to come back because when this is what all these liberals, they know if they're wrong and they look bad and it's bad for the left and Democrats, they lose money. That's why when we reached out to David Pakman, with all due respect, nobody owes me the favor. The first thing he said was, I'll do the show for $5,000. The second thing he said was, and I'm not, I try to be fair, was that he's busy. He's got family. He'll try to make time and see if he can make it work. And he never did. The first time we reached out, I was like, here's my chart. Here's my fee. Don Lemon, $50,000. Kyle Kulinski said, I'll try to make it some point. Never did. Hassan Piker first said, yes, I'll do it, then backed off and said, no, I won't. Sam Cedar came on, put on a fake show, admitted he was farming clips, and then smirked and left. Because that's what these people do. Let me tell you the Sam Cedar one, right? Sam Cedar asked, I'm pro-choice, okay? I'm pro-choice, all right? Conservatives know this, but I don't agree with abortion up to 9 months. There's got to be some limitations on it. I'm old school pro-choice. So I'm more likely to align with the pro-lifer because Democrats have gone so far saying abortion to 9 months. I'm like, yikes, what do I do there? Conservatives have offered to negotiate. And so with that, you've got Sam Cedar asking me, hypothetically, what would a conservative do if they were to ban this? And my response is basically, well, I guess you'd have to do this thing. He asked me a hypothetical. What do you think a conservative would respond with? And then when I answered, if you banned it like this, you'd have to do this, that, or otherwise, he then starts screaming and ranting about, oh, F you. And then once he's done with his farming, he goes, that's the clip I wanted to get. And I'm like, okay, but I'm pro-choice. He's like, doesn't matter. He just wants to falsely frame it to get 1 million views. That's the game. Let's listen to what Luke has to say.
Claim is MAGAnomics is terrible for the economy.
What? Bro, this is the problem with Jubilee. And this is direct commentary for you, Jubilee. Stop falsely abusing the copyright system. Bro, that's not a claim. MAGAnomics, define it. Are you talking about tariffs? Man, spare me. I hate this too because watch this. Okay, bro, let's be real. There's no way anybody on this back half of Luke is gaining that chair. Like, unless you jump over him. Oh, look at that. The guy who was closest to the chair got the chair. Stupid.
You look very
This is fake. This is why we don't do this. When we do the Culture War podcast, we have people write down arguments and we call them up. The last time they did, they wrote down questions. I said, guys, no questions, arguments.
Flanky.
Very nice to meet you.
Let's just start here, okay?
This guy's wearing a suit.
Because you would agree Trump's landmark economic policy is tariff.
There we
That's
go.
like
Let's
his
go.
biggest thing.
Well, let's start with the big picture. Trump has
Tariffs.
the right vision.
We'll get there. Let's just get clear. Who pays the tariff?
Okay, first of all, I'm a businessman. I do gross CFO
Good.
work around the world. I got hundreds of clients. I've been
Good.
30 years of building businesses.
Beautiful.
I can tell you firsthand the reason why many of my American companies can't get into foreign markets is because of tariff barriers.
Just because Trump always seems confused about this, who is it that pays a tariff?
Well, the importer does.
The importer.
Right.
So every time Trump says foreign countries are the ones who pay the tariff, it's not U.S. companies, he's lying.
That's true. It's
He's lying.
importer.
Okay,
Importers,
good. It's weird for his...
Technicality. The argument Trump is making, and Luke isn't wrong. The argument you'll get on the right as it pertains to tariffs is that Trump is 100% incorrect when he says the foreign company pays the tariff. Technically, his argument is that it creates a cost barrier for their product, and they have to try and drop their prices to compete in the United States, which if they can't do, it doesn't work. The goal of the tariff, of course, is to make it so that it's cheaper to build a business in America than in China, which I agree with because American laborers can't compete with $1 an hour Indonesian labor or Chinese labor. But let's hear it, Luke.
whole economic policy to be based on a lie, but
Well,
okay,
what does it do? So the tariff barriers create fair access. So it's all about fairdom. Americans, look around the room. You got some of the most talented people you will ever know in the world. We can give us a chance to compete, level playing field. We will do the work. We will bring in the international business. Many of our jobs are with globalization, which I led. Many of our jobs.
I gotta stress this. I love this so much. Let me start here. When I was younger, me and my friends started a nonprofit fundraising business, short-lived, and then I just went back to we tried to do it. We had some minor success for several months, and I went back to working for companies and said, dude, it is really hard to start your own business, especially when you're 21. But when I was 23, I actually then did start my own. I was a director, started my first company, worked on several startup projects with people in California. My first business probably was when I was a little kid, actually. Me and my friends had clothing. We called it Sketchy Skatewear. That's right. I was 14 years old, and we were selling clothing, getting it printed and sold. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs. What I find fascinating about Luke Beasley is his lack of experience in business and in U.S. economics, but his assertion that he's correct. Let's hear it.
Gone international because of unfair tariff practices. Even when we had property in China, we had to hire a non-tariff barrier. We had to hire a Chinese spy to be in our telecom company, still in our secrets.
Okay, we're just that's like a random anecdote. We got to go more. When you look at the impact, we've seen job growth slowing. We've seen GDP growth slowing.
San fact check. Jubilee points this out. GDP increased 3.8% during the second quarter of 25, nearly identical to the same period in 24. Average monthly job gains have slowed, but the unemployment rate and the total number of unemployed people hasn't changed. That's massive. Because what this means is Trump's tariffs have created a barrier, so it's harder for U.S. companies to buy cheap Chinese labor. More likely to result in Americans building up industry. We're not going to get the direct impact right away, but we need to build industry in the United States. Luke, you are so ignorant on this issue, and you are wrong. Come back and debate in the culture war. What's going on? But we've tried rebooking this guy. He won't do it.
Unemployment ticking up, employment.
He's completely wrong.
Getting worse. That's all an impact of him slapping these futures. He's also tariffing.
No, that's is the problem with this guy? But I can understand why he does well. When you just say things without merit, which they've already proven to be wrong, then, there you go. Liberals will follow you because you're making things up. Spurious correlation. He says unemployment is up. It's not. The economy is bad. There are some issues with the economy, but bad, it's kind of like meh, right? And then he goes, that's because of tariffs. You've got no evidence that's the case.
Quickly, Brazil, which we have a trade surplus with, so it's not the...
In 2024, the U.S. had a $6.8 billion trade surplus on goods with Brazil. The U.S. had a services trade surplus of $23.1 billion.
Trade barrier reason. He's tariffing countries where it doesn't even make coherent sense because he's upset about this thing or that thing, but then we're the ones paying the consequences.
Okay, let's be clear.
That's incoherent.
Let's be clear about impact.
Wow. Here's the challenge we face. Luke is a grifter. The issue is that he's trying to make sound bites. He's arrogant, agitated, and ignorant. I've told this story a million times. I'll tell it again. I'm a skateboarder. I have a skateboard company at boonieshq.com. We recently sold we did our initial limited release run. We sold them all out. We sold 310 skateboards in total in less than 2 hours. And in the skateboard industry, that's massive because skateboarding is like basically dead. But I'll tell you why. And this is important. I don't care if you don't care about skateboarding. Call them widgets for all I care. Back in the day, there was a widget factory. And you'd have a bunch of guys working in a wood shop. They'd bring home samples to their kids. The company would say, we want to sell more products, so we're going to market to the local community. The widget shop would then go to the park and hand out widgets to kids to play with, to try. Those kids would then play with other kids, and it built a culture around this product. This was skateboarding. However, at some point with free trade, companies realized that the cheap peasant labor in China was cheaper than American woodworkers. So what did they do? Skateboard manufacturer said, I can't afford to pay $15 an hour, because again, we're going back in time to like the 90s, to a woodworker right now, when I can pay $3 to a Chinese worker. The shipping costs are absorbed by the loss of labor costs. Skateboard company then offshores all its manufacturing. We harvest the wood in North America, the best, which is rock maple, send it to China, make a skateboard with Chinese peasant labor, send it back to the United States, all so we can save $1 or $2. I'm not kidding. We've gone through the numbers for our skateboards. It's around $35 to make a skateboard in the United States. That's the cost of the board, the physical board. It is $30 to do it in China. Now, if you're buying like 10,000 boards or 100,000 boards, the costs come way down even in the United States because volume will compensate for it'll pay the bills, right? 1 penny off 100 million boards, and you're making $1 million. You're going to be happy, right? So then we sell our boards, our team boards, for $50 and our pro models for $55. Why? Insurance costs, staffing costs, labor costs. We don't have a very high margin on these boards. It's okay, but we are making a profit. And we're giving the pro skateboarders the biggest margin in the industry. When the tariffs were put in place, the skateboard company said, whoa, now it's costing us $50 to make a skateboard. And the crazy thing is there's sometimes double tariffs. Sending the wood to China, China then charged a tariff on our lumber. So it increased the cost upwards of even $60. The pro companies started selling skateboards for $90 and complaining, Trump's costing us all this money. Guess what? Booney's HQ skateboards price went down. That's right. Our team models, we have 4 up. We dropped the price to $50 because we said we're not attaching a professional to it. So it's a wider margin for us. Whereas the pro model boards, we got to pay the pro skateboarder. I said, we'll bring the cost down. That's the power of tariffs. Sales improved. American-made boards sell better because I don't have to compete with Chinese peasants anymore. And the good working-class Americans in this country don't have to compete with Chinese peasant labor. Luke doesn't understand this because he's never run a business and hasn't witnessed how they've destroyed our aluminum refineries, our steel, and our woodworking.
In the second quarter, which we're still, what we just finished, in the second quarter, GDP was at 3%, which is a normal range for us. Core inflation is at 2.1 to 2.4%, which is normal for us. Unemployment down at 4%.
You agree that we saw 48 consecutive months of job growth under Biden, and then Trump came in and we lost jobs for the first time in June?
Which jobs? Fact check. President Biden had consistent job growth during his administration, but 8 million of those jobs were for making up COVID losses. Dude, this is why Luke won't come back on the show. He'd get roasted in 2 seconds. Joe Biden's job growth on the chart is because they say Trump lost 8 million jobs. COVID shut it all down. Those were by state. Trump takes some responsibility for that.
I think it was.
But we agree there's 4% unemployment, which is a.
Well, he was handed 4% unemployment.
And he was handed down 8 million jobs, and then COVID ended and restarted them. This dude is a sophist grifter. Luke, come on. Come back on the culture war. Let's play.
You can't give him credit for that. That's what Biden gave him.
Okay.
Agreed. Biden's economy was good?
Not agreed. In Biden's economy, inflation went up. There were some years 9%.
Well, we handled it better than...
I've got no problem saying... take away the whole COVID argument. Say Trump didn't cost any jobs on COVID. He's some responsibility. The states did this. It was COVID. I say hindsight is 20/20. I got a lot of things wrong on COVID. That's fine. Some people were perfectly right on it. I think it's hard to know exactly at the time. And we look back and, hindsight is 20/20. We think we should have been right. And maybe we just couldn't have been. I will say this. I don't have massive arguments necessarily with the Biden economy as a whole based on these numbers. There were certain issues at the time where it was like egg shortages and weird prices and all that stuff, price increases. But you know what? I'll say this. The question is which jobs? The argument on tariffs is not about the core economic numbers. It is about, do we have working class opportunity? And if you're arguing that GDP is up because the wealthiest are making more money, but the poorest are making less, I ain't on board for that.
Than our G7 counterparts, that was kind of a pandemic thing.
We have $6 trillion of new foreign direct investment coming in.
Right.
We have a focus on AI. We have a focus on energy. Trump has a right vision for Americans and probably people like you.
So let's talk again about his argument, right? Is that we're going to bring in a bunch of domestic manufacturers, which will be more expensive. Otherwise, we would have been manufacturing here already. We sent them elsewhere because it was cheaper. And so he's saying we'll bring factories back.
You're saying you send our jobs. You're saying you send our jobs elsewhere. It's not the manufacturing that's important. They used to have 20,000 manufacturing companies around Chicago alone. Many of them left never to return, which are jobs for people like the people in the room and people that support you.
And the solution
that is not good for us.
Broad strokes, draconian tariffs, as shown by we're losing manufacturing. We're losing manufacturing.
The U.S. has lost 70,000 manufacturing jobs over the last year, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Indeed. See, this is why I got to... The Jubilee stuff isn't actually informing us on anything. Luke Beasley is consistently missing context, wrong, or engaging in sophistry. The man he's debating with didn't have the proper rebuttal when he said, well, but Joe Biden had good job growth. He's like, because this is why I don't like these Jubilee things, okay? And this is why we don't do it that way on the culture war. I will say this. I have already given you the example of skateboards. I have already criticized Donald Trump's tariffs on coffee. I also have a coffee business at castbrew.com. And what I've brought up is it makes no sense to tariff coffee because coffee can only be grown in the United States in Kona. It's Hawaiian coffee. It's expensive. It's some of the best, I might add. Seriously, it's amazing. That good volcanic soil. Let's go. But coffee is produced in warmer areas that we don't really have. And so we're going to be importing coffee. That's what we do. For Trump to tariff all coffee, I'm like, all you're doing is making it harder for people to have coffee. That's not the right move. However, all in all, Trump has been targeting these tariffs for 2 reasons. As I already mentioned, to build a culture in the United States and create the opportunity. That means in the short term, you're not going to see this stuff. These libs, they are short-term thinkers. Why don't we have any jobs starting right now? Well, someone's got to invest in creating the factory, and they have to believe that Trump's going to win this in the long run. If there is a belief that Democrats will win and reverse all these tariffs, or the Supreme Court may shut them down, people are not going to spend the money. Trump needs to win on this. I'm telling you right now. Back to the argument on my company with skateboarding. When skateboarding manufacturers start making more money in the United States, once again, woodworkers give the boards to their kids skate. They say, let's do demos. They come back to the skate parks. They say, everybody, here's a skateboard, try it out. And you get your community back. Skateboarding is dead right now. It's completely dead. And it's unfortunate. You know, we went through this period a couple of years ago where we'd hit up pros and be like, come to our events, we'll pay you a fee for filming, and there's contests, and they'd be like, look, man, we can't, it's too political, we'll lose our sponsors. Funny thing happened. Over the course of the past couple of years, they lost their sponsors anyway. The money all dried up. Famously, Liquid Death. That's right, you've heard of them, the canned water company. Fired their entire skate team, even though it only cost them like $40K a year. A couple grand per month to pay for a professional skateboard team. They fired everybody. Amazing. Skateboarding is dead. To bring this back and make it possible for Americans to have a piece of this industry, we have to have the core functions of it in this country. I'll tell you where this goes. When we sent the manufacturing jobs for skateboarding to China, guess what happened? Skateboarding in Southeast Asia is massive. Some of the biggest skate companies in the world are putting all of their growth and development in Japan, China, Korea. And I'm sitting here being like, why are all of the skateboarders in Asia? We invented this. It's an American sport. We made it, and we gave it all away because it's cheaper over there. And when the manufacturing is there, the community is there too.
Tell me why we're not. I can talk about companies I work for.
You can Google it. We'll
I can
do a
talk
fact
about companies I work for. The manufacturers coming back. They have more orders they can deliver.
But those are anecdotal, not the broader stats on this.
Tell me why you're against fair trade for Americans.
Oh, I'm for that. Heck yeah. And if Trump wanted to negotiate,
then how do you get to it without doing tariffs?
If he wanted to use it as a threat, right? He goes to countries. He says, "You have these trade barriers. If you don't reduce them, I'm gonna."
That's not the issue, bruh. I'm going to say it again. This is why Luke Beasley doesn't want to come on the show. Brother, it's that a Chinese worker is going to get $3 an hour. An American, they want what? A $30 an hour minimum wage. So how are y'all on the Democrat side? I'm not saying you personally because maybe you didn't argue this. Going to say in New York we should have a $30 minimum wage, but we're going to allow companies to send manufacturing jobs and any kind of digital services to China for a couple bucks an hour. Guess what? No one's going to have a job at $30.
Slap tariffs. That would be one thing. That's not what he did.
So you think empty threats work?
But that's not what happened.
We're not talking about trade reciprocity on tariffs. Sometimes. I am saying right now, the argument for tariffs principally is not, well, they tariff us, we should tariff them. There is an argument there, and you can counter that argument. But I'm going to ask you this, Luke. How do you've got two workers, okay? One guy wants to do online phone call fundraising. He gets a $30 minimum wage. The company he works for says, I can hire an Indian guy to do it for $1. Who's going to hire? You think they should be like, well, I'd rather just lose the money and hire the $30? No. But with tariffs on imported goods, I can't talk about digital services. They're going to say, I'm going to hire a guy at $30 an hour in America or $3 in China. And then Trump goes, actually, with tariffs, no one's going to buy your product. He said this in 2016. And Michael Moore famously came out and said, Donald Trump went to these auto manufacturers. You know what? Can I find this quote? Michael Moore, Trump quote, auto tariffs. Let's see if we can find this one. Famous quote. Michael Moore said that Donald Trump threatens a 35% tariff was music to the ears of the working class. Here we go. The human Molotov cocktail quote. Do we have it right here? Where's the actual video? Let's see. Moore said Trump's success in the race came from the willingness to say anything to get elected. Oh, is that the way he's going with it? Because he said Donald Trump, you know what? It's the Trump human Molotov quote Moore. I want to play this video for you. There's the CNBC. Here we go. 9 years ago. Look at this. Let's play it.
Came to the Detroit Economic Club.
Here we go.
Donald Trump came to the Detroit Economic Club and stood there in front of the Ford Motor executives and said, if you close these factories as you're planning to do in Detroit and build them in Mexico, I'm going to put a 35% tariff on those cars when you send them back, and nobody's going to buy them. It was an amazing thing to see. No politician, Republican or Democrat, had ever said anything like that to these executives. And it was music to the ears of people in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, the Brexit states. You live here in Ohio.
Now, I want to say, I don't blame Luke Beasley for not knowing this. I do blame him for trying to engage in public debate when he doesn't have the context, because 9 years ago, homie was what, like 12 or 13 years old and did not know what was going on. Same as me arguing like Clinton policies. I barely was paying attention. You hear what Michael Moore just said?
Ohio, you know what I'm talking about. Whether Trump means it or not is kind of irrelevant, because he's saying the things to people who are hurting. And it's why every beaten down, nameless, forgotten working stiff who used to be part of what was called the middle class loves Trump. He is the human Molotov cocktail that they've been waiting for.
People in Detroit and Michigan, they made cars for a living. The Rust Belt, 20,000 manufacturing companies, 20,000 different businesses, all gone. People made cars in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, and they're gone now. And Detroit's failing. We needed those jobs. We needed to work for each other. And Donald Trump came to these people and said, I'm going to bring your jobs back with tariffs. And they voted for him. And Trump is doing what he promised to do. I want to make sure you guys understand this. This video from Michael Moore is from 2016, October 26, 2016, where he explained that in Trump's first term, when he was campaigning, he went in and said, I'm going to put a tariff on your cars at 35% if you send those factories to Mexico. It is now 9 years later. Trump is in his first year of his second term, and he is putting these tariffs in place as he promised. And he is telling these people to bring these jobs back. Luke, you are ignorant and arrogant on this issue.
He just slapped tariffs on the whole world, including an island with penguins on it, and then started.
Okay. Another lie from the left and in their ignorance. This is why Luke Beasley won't come on the show. The island with penguins on it. First of all, whether an island has penguins or not is not relevant to whether or not there should be a tariff. However, this island in question, there's two. They don't have any inhabitants, just penguins. And Democrats came out and said, why is Trump tariffing penguins? Because there's corporations there that send machinery from these islands where work is done to other countries. So Trump said, no loopholes. And then they lied.
Trying to make deals, but it wasn't really working, so he just started. Wait, really hear this? Not very many. It was like 3 that were actual deals. And then he just started sending letters to countries with no concessions, saying, "Hey, this is your tariff rate." So there was no concession. We still have to pay higher tariffs here. We don't get the benefits that he says we're going to get, but we get the downsides of paying higher prices.
We get them a chance to employment. The companies I work for get a chance.
It's not working.
Okay, pause. You've been voted out.
The red flag thing is dumb. Good sir, with all due respect, trying to debate Luke Beasley, I respect that you're a businessman with a lot of experience in the area. But again, the issue of debates is whether you're quick-witted or not. You can be dumb as a box of rocks like Luke Beasley and just say things and you'll sound smarter.
Friend, Luke, nice to meet you.
Meganomics.
Hi.
Hi, Luke. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
What's your name?
My name is Rosalind.
Rosalind.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So we're going to do this with everyone. We agree
Okay.
Trump lies when he says foreign countries pay the tariffs.
You know what's interesting about that is that if they weren't paying something, why were they so hard working trying to get out of it?
China, Japan, Mr. Japan.
See, there's an edit there. And you saw Luke get exasperated. Again, criticism of Jubilee. What Luke is doing is a semantic trick. We can agree that Trump is lying when he says the foreign countries pay the tariffs. No, hold on. This is a setup question that attempts to slice through the greater picture of what tariffs are. So I will say this factually, yes. Americans that are importing a product will pay a tariff when that product is imported. Trump is playing this game where he's trying to argue like this fringe understanding of those companies are going to have to drop their prices to compete in the United States, and it's going to cost them a lot of money. If they want to charge more for their product, so be it. However, it is factually true that when that money when is being exchanged, an American has to pay an extra fee on top to bring it in from China or India or otherwise. However, the bigger picture, and Trump, he doesn't do a good job on this. He should be saying, this is for the American worker. It will cost you more money when you buy a product from China. And the reason is the people in China are peasant labor. You know what the sad reality is, though, Luke? Your voters would rather hire the slave labor. That's why the minimum wage argument is all bunk BS. Now, my friends, I'm going to stress, there's another hour and 31 minutes of this Jubilee video. And this video in no way serves as any kind of functional replacement for what that video is, offers up severe and serious critiques to Jubilee, as well as Luke Beasley's fake arguments, a direct commentary on everything he presented using a minimal portion of the material in question. Yet every time I call them out, they file fake copyright claims against this content. Now, I opened this video with that explicitly because I know what they're going to do. They're going to do another fake copyright takedown. And at some point, I think we're going to have to call, I'm going to call my lawyer and say they're abusing the copyright system because Jubilee knows full well this is fair use commentary. Scumbaggery. But I'm going to wrap it up there, my friends. Subscribe if you haven't already. Smash the like button, share the show. Stay tuned, more to come. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all in the next show.